Well, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Bridges Conversations. My name is Steve Givens. I'm the executive director of the Bridges Foundation in St. Louis. We have, for the last 30 years or so, offered the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola in everyday life. And we do that through a 9-month program that begins in September and goes through around May. If you're joining us for the first time and would like more information about that, on our screen now is a link to our website. My phone number is also on that website, and if you would ever like to talk, please just give me a call and let me know. We can tell you more about the retreat. So we are joined today by Dale Auffenberg. Dale is a member of the Bridges community, went through the retreat, the Bridges retreat, and has gone on to become one of our prayer companions. Those are the people that walk with our retreatants step by step, week by week, through the exercises. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that role today. Let me tell you just a little bit about Dale before we start. Although she's going to tell us some of this, I guess I shouldn't talk too much about this. So let me just say she was born out west. She's going to tell you a little bit more about that. And went to school at Santa Clara University, which is a Jesuit university. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about her life back then. But she has been a teacher, a school counselor, and for many years helped run a family business here in St. Louis with her husband Tom. Together with her husband Tom, they run a program called the Next Chapter program, which Tom spoke to us about last month. And if you want to see that conversation, go to our website or our Facebook page, and you can find a copy of that conversation. The Next Chapter program helps people prepare for retirement using aspects and ideas from Ignatian spirituality. So, Dale, after all that, welcome. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Hi, Steve. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, let's start with that background. I don't know if I've ever met anybody who was born in Montana before, but tell us about your early life and what did your parents do in Montana that made them be there in the first place? I guess that's kind of interesting. But then tell us a little bit about that early life and eventually how you came to St. Louis. I'll let you talk through that and we'll go from there.
Okay. Actually, both sets of my grandparents were kind of pioneers. My paternal grandfather actually opened the first bank in Montana and brought the telegraph and all sorts of businesses. And my mom's dad immigrated from Ireland and was the first postmaster in Montana. So kind of go back several generations. So I was raised in Missoula, Montana, where the University of Montana is. And it was a great place to grow up. Actually, Bozeman and Missoula are now in this COVID era very popular places because they offer a lot, but have a really great lifestyle. There were 5 children in our family, and I think very wisely, my dad, from the time we were very young, always told us that we should plan on going to college, but not to plan on going to college in Montana, because he thought it was pretty necessary to be exposed to a little broader slice of life than a small town in Montana. When he was young, his mom died when he was 2. And so he actually was educated by the Jesuits from the time he was in 7th grade through college. He went to a boarding school in Bellarmine College Prep, which is a Jesuit high school in the Santa Clara Valley that in those days was a boarding school. So he lived there for 4 years, and then from there went on to in Santa Clara. So he was a big fan of the Jesuits early on and really thought that they contributed an awful lot to his values and his upbringing. And actually, it's kind of interesting, but one of the early Jesuit missions was in St. Ignatius, Montana, which is just a little out of Missoula. And so actually, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, but right across the street from it was Loyola Academy, which was an all-boys Jesuit high school. And so even in high school, they didn't have co-ed classes, but like our chemistry class was taught by a Jesuit. And so I was exposed to the Jesuits pretty early on, and a big fan of them. So, but.
So it's Santa Clara, which is in California, Santa Clara, California, Jesuit College, University there. Tell us what you studied, and you went from there to get a master's degree, but you had a little work in between with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. So tell us a little bit about that early adult age of your life.
Yeah. So I studied psychology and sociology at Santa Clara, and kind of always had a leaning to thinking about teaching and counseling. But I wasn't totally sure what that path was going to be. So after I graduated, I did join the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. Those years, it was only in Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. So I moved to Portland, Oregon, and taught in inner city school, and through the JBCs, and lived with other Jesuit volunteers. And then through that, learned about a really good program in counseling psychology at the University of Oregon. So I started teaching during the year, and then in the summers and on the weekends, pursued my master in counseling psychology at the University of Oregon.
All right, nice. Well, let's fast forward a little bit. You eventually made your way to St. Louis, and I think that your husband Tom had something to do with that.
Definitely.
Tell us a little bit about that, and I think let's skip ahead after that to just kind of how you first came in touch with the spiritual exercises through the Bridges program. I know. So when that was, and what was going on in your life at that time that kind of drew you to the exercises.
Okay. Well, I met my husband, Tom, in college, and he was from St. Louis. And we actually didn't get married until 5 years after we graduated. And at that point, he had just graduated from St. Louis U Law School and had gotten a job as an assistant attorney general in Jeff City. So as soon as we got married, we moved to Jeff City, and then after 2 years to St. Louis. And in those early days, I did teach and did some counseling, but more in public school settings. At that time, we were growing our family, and we had 4 children. And so for several years when they were very young, I took some time off and stayed home with them to raise them. And in that time, Tom actually left law and bought a commercial printing company. And so when my youngest was in kindergarten, and I felt like, I could go back to work, then I actually took on a whole new career and went to work in the printing company, doing a lot of the accounting work and HR, doing all the employee benefits and that kind of thing. So really stepped back from all of that. One of the reasons Tom wanted to be a business owner, he's got a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, is he's always really, I think, wanted to be his own boss. And so during that time, he was able to take some classes at Aquinas, and also in the 90s, he did receive the retreat, actually with a Jesuit priest, Father Rich Bueller. And from that, then trained to be a prayer companion. And so I kind of heard about it, but between working and having 4 kids, it just was something that was sort of intriguing, but I didn't feel like the timing was right for me to do it. And fast forward to 2013, we had some people who were very interested in buying our business, and it just seemed like an offer that was too good to be true. Even though it was a great business for us, that business was tough with the anthrax and the internet and so many things. So anyway, we knew in 2013 that we were going to transition our company and sell it in 2016. About that time, I'd been an empty nester for a few years. And so I started thinking, it's time for me to start planning my next chapter. And so I did finally go to the info sessions, and in 2013 and 14 did go through the retreat myself.
Yeah. And what do you think for you? And first of all, I want to say we have a few viewers joining us. If you have questions for Dale as we go along, please just leave them in the comment section on Facebook, and I will see them and we'll get to them. So, Dale, what do you think were the kind of the great takeaways for you of doing the retreat? What are the things that you learned during the course of that time that have stuck with you and help form you going forward?
Well, as I've said so many times to people that I talk to about the retreat, I'm always astounded that St. Ignatius was born in 1492 and basically lived in the early 1500s, that he had just an incredible grasp of human psychology. And so given my interest in my work in psychology, there was something very intriguing about that. And there were a lot of concepts that just really resonated, even though he kind of wrote about them and formulated the retreat back in the 1500s, that have always seemed every bit as relevant today as I'm sure that people found that they were then. That as I thought about these questions, one of the hard things about being a counselor and a school counselor, you have so many students, you sort of can feel like a little bit of a Band-Aid. But to have a spirituality that basically says you are so loved, I know that you're not perfect, I've lived life, with its terrible trials and tribulations, so I get, your pains and your heartaches, and it's all going to be okay. I mean, basically those are the messages of the weeks of the retreat. And so I find that just a very comforting, really wonderful way to live your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, part of that "you are loved anyway" is this idea that comes out of the spiritual exercises of indifference, knowing that we are kind of loved. We don't have to get everything figured out for ourselves, that we are loved and we are guided. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of indifference and what that means for people who that might be a foreign concept to them?
Yeah, there's several tenets of Ignatian spirituality that really resonated with me, and that what they would call now active indifference. It kind of goes hand in hand with another, important concept in the retreat is this idea of discernment, and that's making decisions, informed decisions for yourself by listening very much to your feelings, and then also praying that you're hearing the voice of God. And so one of the things that the retreat tells you is when you are faced with a decision, to try to be indifferent to both of the paths emotionally as much as you can. And there's another concept that they use of pray dreaming. Okay, so this is decision A, and I'm going to just figure out all the pros and cons, really pay attention to my feelings, really try to imagine, if I'm at the end of that path, what that decision would look like. And then step back and take the other path. And in the same way, not get too emotionally invested in which decision is right or wrong, but to try to be indifferent to that, but at the same time, pay attention to your feelings. And again, pray dream that out. I mean, for a practical example, Tom and I had an opportunity several years ago to move back to the West Coast, and it was, and I think as I said to you, you know, I wasn't exposed to these concepts until later in my life. But then as I look back and reflected on some of the decisions and the past that we'd taken, I realized, that we'd kind of used some of those. And so in this decision to move, to try to not get too invested in moving or in staying, but to be actively indifferent and really to try to focus without getting too set on how you hope that decision turns out. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's kind of countercultural in today to kind of because we're raised and we get good educations and we plan our lives and we plan our careers, and the culture tells us, well, it's all up to us,
totally.
and we still have work to do, no doubt. But this idea that we can be uh, indifferent, uh, especially between two good choices, right? It's not like you're
Yeah.
trying to choose between something that's bad and something that's good. You're trying, in your case, should we move to the West Coast or should we stay in St. Louis? Well, those aren't good and bad. Those are trying to decide between two good things. So
Right.
um, the idea that we can just let go of that. So how do you, I mean, you talked a little bit about prey dreaming, but what is it that we're paying attention to during that time that can help nudge us in one direction or the other, do you think?
Well, one of the first things I want to say first is, yeah, I think a lot of times when we make decisions, we intellectualize it. And, one of the other tenets of a nation spirituality that I love is that it really encourages you to pay attention to your feelings. That Ignatius believed that Jesus, our God, the Holy Spirit, they definitely speak to us through our emotions, and so it's important to pay attention to that. But at the same time, to not get vested in it, but as you pay attention to your feelings, and I know this has certainly turned out to be true for me, that as I'm discerning a decision, if you really reflect on it, but not go too fast. And this is why the examen and daily prayer is important, to really reflect on the decision, but pay attention to your feelings. That eventually you come to a pretty strong idea of what's the best decision or the best outcome for you. And usually, if you follow that process, it rings pretty true that it's a pretty good decision, and
Yeah.
that God's really uh, part of that process.
All right. Um, we're coming up close to 20 minutes here pretty soon. That's how fast 20 minutes goes. There's at least one other area I wanted to spend a little time with, and that's, I think, this idea when you, especially for those out there who are seeing this and haven't been through this retreat, the 9-month process of going through the spiritual exercises. There's a couple different components to that. One is a daily commitment to prayer following the exercises. One is a weekly or a monthly meeting with a small group of people, so you get to do this in community. But another part that I want to talk to you about is the role of the prayer companion. So when you go through this retreat, we don't just turn you loose with a book and say, see you in 9 months, right? So it's very much about a one-on-one relationship between the retreatant and a prayer companion. And these are people that uh, receive specialized training to do this, as you have. So could you talk a little bit about the role of the prayer companion in with someone as they're going through the exercises?
Sure. Well, back in the days when Saint Ignatius was creating this, he coined the phrase "companions on the journey," and I liken a prayer companion a little bit to it. There's a definite structure to the retreat um, that basically kind of follows the liturgical year, but there's certain readings and things that go along with the retreat. And so a prayer companion kind of gives suggested readings and maybe little introductions to some of the new concepts, because there are, several concepts that are kind of unique to Ignatian spirituality. And so to introduce the retreatant to those concepts. And then journaling is a big part of the process besides daily prayer. And so when I meet with my retreatants, generally we'll spend the first 15 or 20 minutes talking about, what were some of the new insights that they might have gained, or questions that they might have had, or whatever, as a result of the liturgical readings and the journaling that they covered during that week. And then we also do have guest speakers that come. At my site, we meet weekly, and so if there's concepts or things like that have been brought up, and so just to kind of gently guide them in terms of the process. It's a little different than spiritual direction in that there is a definite structure, the structure of the retreat that we follow, unlike a more, where are you finding God in your life, or whatever, which tends to be more the conversation with spiritual direction. So,
Right. We have just a few minutes left. I know there's a handful of people out watching us. If you have any questions for Dale, now would be the time to ask them before we're going to sign off here within the next 2 or 3 minutes. But if you have a question, please ask away. And some people might be wondering about the role of the prayer companion and how we match prayer companions up with retreatants. Can you talk a little bit about how that happens?
well, for anyone who's interested, you will be sending out information that there will be information sessions, and then there is an application that you go through, a little bit of a biography in terms of your faith development, and it's kind of a spirit driven decision that there's sort of a panel at each site that has interviewed the prospective retreatants, and of course they know who their prayer companions are, and of course also just some prayer and hopefully a little intervention, divine inspiration from the Holy Spirit that tends to merge, compatible retreatants with prayer companions. And this is my 5th year of being a prayer companion, and I just get every bit as much out of being a prayer companion as hopefully the retreatants do, just because seeing the retreat from their perspective and their life experiences, and that is always new and brings new insights and wonderful spiritual nuggets to me too. So if you've ever been somewhat thinking about doing this retreat, I highly recommend it. I remember the first day, one of the people at my site saying, your life will never be the same, and I really would say that it's just a really wonderful spirituality that just continues to nurture my life in many ways that I could have never foreseen. So,
yeah, well said. I think that's true for so many of us, which is why we stay involved and become prayer companions, and we want to share this experience, which really is a close encounter with God and Jesus in a very special way that is transforming.
yeah.
So,
and it's also, I might add, just a wonderful community of people. Many of my closer friends now are people that I've gotten to know through the Bridges community. So,
absolutely right. Yeah, and we didn't have time to talk about it today, but we do have a follow-up program to the retreat called our Magis program, MAGIS, which is a a word we use a lot in Ignatian spirituality. It means more, and so we have an ongoing faith formation in Ignatian spirituality program that meets once a month for those who've already been through the retreat, and people have, you can do that for years and years. And you can, through that program, also learn to be a prayer companion. So that's how we do that. So on the screen here, just one more time, is our website, bridgesfoundation.org. Please check us out and reach out to me if you want some more information, or reach out to Dale if you know her, or anyone else that you know that might have been through this experience. Reach out to them and ask them to tell you their story. It's a great way to learn more about this. We will be announcing our summer information sessions within the next month. And if you're interested in that, please just check our website or reach out to us. The next episode of our conversation series will be a month from today, on Friday, May 6th. We'll be joined with Father Hung Pham, who's a Jesuit. He's the director of the Office of Ignatian Spirituality for the Jesuit Central and South Province, that's based out of Denver. And Hung, as he likes to be called, has a great long life experience with the spiritual exercises and with Ignatian spirituality. And we're going to be talking about that, and about how the spiritual exercises, even though they're, the 16th century concept, as Dale was saying, they are so alive today and so flexible that they can meet you no matter where you are, no matter your culture, your upbringing, where you are in your faith walk. They can, with help of a prayer companion, they can meet you right where you are and begin that transformation. So that's what we're going to be doing next Friday. So a month from now, on May 6th. So Dale, thanks again for joining us. I look forward to seeing you and Tom soon, as always. And
well, thank you, Stephen. Thank you for all you do for furthering this retreat in the whole province. You do great work. So,
well, thank you. It's a big group effort, and as you said, it's a wonderful community of people. So, yeah. All right, that's it for now. We'll see you all on May 6th. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.